And welcome to the review of the best of black metal and dark extreme music in this first week of January 2025. And now we are going to Australia with the band Drone in the Light and their album Conqueror Serve Part 1 from Primordial Waters of Chaos. Even though 2024 gave us a lot of quality material from start to finish, far superior to 2023, this year begins with a pleasant surprise. The icon, Drone in the Light, brings us a release that is part of a series of 5 LPs that are going to be released this year. It's really a pleasant surprise because after the explosion of black metal in the Scandinavian countries, there were some bands that, from the year 2000, kept the flame alive until now. And with this album we find an atmospheric melodic raw black metal with some kind of surprising passages with clean female voices and also ambient passages. It has 7 songs of around 40 minutes, and on the cover we can see the beauty of the Australian landscapes as well as certain mystical symbols typical of their previous covers. So for those who like a mid-tempo black metal with a heritage of Burzum sound from the first era, and something similar to groups like Leviathan and Sastur from the USA, this is for you. This band released their first demos in 2003 and has a total of 18 full-length albums, in addition to several splits, EPs and demos. They have had a solid discography, releasing several good albums in all of the previous decades. And also it is worth mentioning that the mastermind Asgore has been in bands like the Americans' Black Funeral since 2006 and also since 2003 in the first and the most glorious part and era of Pestilential Shadows. Remember to follow him on his social network of Facebook, where you can already see several posts about their new long-playing records. Also, you can find them on Spotify and YouTube. And finally, the website of the record label that will release the 5 albums, of which there are already certain types of special boxes. This one is already completely sold out, but there is another one that is still available, as well as individually releases that will come out continuously month by month. The big surprise of the year, the legendary band Drone in the Light. And now we are going to Russia with band Alpherg, which brings us a compilation album of certain types of songs recorded in 2002 and also a couple of rehearsals from 97, according to them. And this compilation called Slogray Russian 96-2022 means evil or wickedness and has around 40 minutes and 8 songs. And they have a very good true black metal sound that will remind you of the album The Mysteries of Mayhem and also the newer called Daemon. You can listen to this work in their Bandcamp page and also their previous release. You can also find their link to the official Facebook page, and also you can follow them on their Russian page VK or VKontakte, which is some kind of Russian Facebook for people over there. And now we are going to the USA with the band Black Circle Sorcery and the new album The Grim Scheme of Things. It is an album that has around 40 minutes and 9 songs for fans of Striborg and a little less of Leviathan and Sastur and also Drone in the Light. It is a black metal with ambient, atmospheric and melodic passages, with slow and medium tempos, with a lot of emotional charge. This is the 3rd full length of the band, which began to produce music last year in this style between mystical and mythological topics. You can listen to their works on their official Bandcamp page as well as on YouTube and also in Spotify. You can follow them on Instagram and also contact them or request their merchandise. And now we are going to Poland with the band Deathlike Dawn and the album Nos Czarna Czerna Otchłani, which has 7 songs and around 40 minutes. And the cover shows us some kind of universal flood that destroys a kind of city or civilization. This album has a cold black metal sound with a better production, typical from the year 2000-2010, but they have some features like Gorgoroth in their great LPs Twilight and also Ad Majorem, with some keyboards not reaching the symphonic black metal, but just showing some dark passages. This is their 3rd LP since the first album of 2020, and you can listen to their works on Bandcamp and also on Spotify. And if you want to follow them, go to Facebook and also Instagram. And now we go to Italy with a band called Morse and the album Ultra Mortem et Infera, which is understood as Beyond Death and Hell. And the band Morse, which means death in Latin language, and they bring us an album of around 40 minutes with 8 songs, and this is for those fans of Deathspell Omega and the glorious era from the Monumentum until Synarchy. They have a black metal sound with some kind of death and progressive things, dissonance, and you can find a lot of progression both in guitars and drums. And coincidentally, the cover shows some kind of mystical things at a cosmic and a spiritual cult level, and also things from the other side. And it is a great surprise that there are bands that with the first LP, they can have a very professional level with a lot of quality. You can listen their works on Bandcamp and also on YouTube. And you can follow them on Instagram. And now we go to the Czech Republic with the band Plague God and their album Frigus Ferrum Vindictae, that is understood as revenge with cold iron or in cold blood, but through the iron or swords. They have very good 6 songs of around 30 minutes, which are a kind of challenge to describe, in part because they sound like Emperor in the Anthems album but without sounding very symphonic. And also the guitar and drums and also the speed are very similar to the sound of the Swiss band Shotza, that have some kind of mixed sound between some touches of thrash metal, Carpathian Forest and pure mid-tempo Norwegian black, and also some keyboards over there. Keyboards in a vampiric wave, or the sound of a cathedral organ. This is the second full length after a couple of demos and a compilation that this gentleman has made. You can listen to his works on the official Bandcamp page as well as on YouTube, and follow him on his social networks of Facebook and also Instagram. And now we travel to Norway with the band Trollskogen, or The Forest of the Trolls, with their album Snøen, which means like the snow is coming. This is the first full length of the band after 3 demos and a split, but they should not be confused with the original Trollskogen, who have been in existence since 2001. They are from Austria, and they have 4 albums that have a sound between the 2nd and the 3rd Burzum album, with certain passages between ambient and acoustics, and a feeling of somewhat German black metal band like Absurd. Now the new Trollskogen from Norway, in this album they have 40 minutes, and they have certain shades of Darkthrone between the Transylvanian Hunger and the Panzerfaust album, without sounding as rusty or raw or necro as somebody called this sound, but more leaning towards the first and the second LP of Dimmu Borgir, but without the symphonic parts. It is gladly similar in the melodic guitar playing, of that grim style that is emotional and dark at the same time. Also you can hear snowstorms and certain acoustic passages. You can listen to this work on Bandcamp, and they don't have any social media yet. And now we come back to the USA with Winter's Descent and its album, Ride the Seven Sins of Death. This is the first full length, and it has 7 songs with around half an hour. This is the first full length, and it has 7 songs with around half an hour. And about the sound, you can locate it between the first 2 LPs of the band Ancient from Norway, and also between the first 2 albums of Dim Borgir, but not emphasizing so much in the symphonic parts or keyboards. This is melodic black metal, which is called Green, with those pure guitars with sinister and dark and melodic tunes. You can listen to it on Spotify as well as on YouTube. And now we go back to the Czech Republic with the band Antichües and their album Life is Grey. And this word Antichües are understood as objects that are significant to a person, some kind of ancient memories. And this band practices an ambient and atmospheric black metal. This is music close to what is called necro black metal, because they are very raw and rusty. And also there are passages between ambient and atmospheric for fans of Striborg, Sastur and Leviathan. This is a one-man band of the mastermind called Agares, and it is the 3rd full length apart from several splits and demos. You can listen to it on the official Bandcamp as well as on Spotify. And also from YouTube you can go directly to the official Instagram of the artist. For some kind of reason the links on the Bandcamp page are not working. And also it is worth mentioning that he participates in 2 other bands, one called Hazing Leaves Scars, and in this band they practice a raw black metal like Darkthrone but with certain experimental touches and some electronic passages, something going towards Striborg. And the other band, Moonlight Sense, I dare to say that this band is much better than everything else, because they sound like a true Norwegian black metal with a pure, raging and ferocious sound similar to the first album of Gorgoroth, Pentagram, and also a similar sound like the Hexen. And now we go to France with the band Coffret de Bijoux, that is understood as a jewelry box or a jewel box, and the album The Law, whose sound reminds us of the Canadian movement that existed since 2005 and ruled the decade of 2010, with these typical atmospheric black metal bands with melancholic tunes that could be called melancholic black metal. You can also find a sound similar to the great band Kanashimi, and also some kind of post-metal clean females vocals, some touches of black gaze that reminds us of the band Amensois or Amesours from France, but with a more romantic and sad feeling. It is atmospheric raw black metal with a lot of emotional charge. This is the 6th full-length album and they have been making music since 2024. But the artist, the mastermind called Alice Simard, participates in a number of bands not so striking and more oriented to progressive, brutal, death metal, some kind of slam, neoclassical, and also 4 black metal bands, somewhat interesting, and a couple of bands in styles like Death Doom and also Funeral Doom. You can listen to this LP on the official Bandcamp as well as on Spotify, and you can follow him on Instagram. And now we are going to Brazil with the band Mepth, which is some kind of reference to Mephistopheles, and the album Roots of Agony. This band practices a depressive black metal but with some acoustic guitars and certain passages related to some post-rock or even alternative rock, even it may sound strange, because you can feel some sounds related to Soundgarden or Smashing Pumpkins. I mean, not in a derogatory way, but trying to emphasize a good way of experimentation that this band has. They have some moments very related to austere, with acoustic guitars and a very agonizing and melancholic and emotional depressive feeling. This is the first LP after several singles and a couple of demos, and you can listen to his works on Bandcamp, on YouTube, and follow him via Instagram. And now we come back to France with the band Osculum Serpentis, that refers to the kiss of the snake in Latin, and the album The Streams of Sorrow. It has 8 tracks of around 40 minutes, and you can see a cover painted not with ink but with blood, which resembles the twisted mind behind this project. This is the 5th album of the band, but the frontman has already been making music in a couple of interesting bands such as Trinity, or that kind of downward triangle, and KFR, which is understood as the word unbeliever in Arabic languages. And these bands have been making some kind of metal between experimental, dissonant, dark ambient and raw black metal. But here in Osculum Serpentis, it is very striking to find several musical currents or influences, because this sounds something between black doom with some noise, ambient ritual, and some ghostly sounds like Faust at times, or sounds something like Abruptum, or the most experimental band Know Their Tongues. This horror and terror feeling begins at minute 1 and it lasts until the end of the LP. It is worth listening for everybody who seems to be different about emotions, unlike the sense of horror and terror. You can listen to their works on Spotify as well as on Bandcamp, and follow them on Facebook as well as Instagram. And now we go back to Australia with the band Serpentum, snake in Latin language, and the album The Hilt of Forking Tongues. Regarding forking tongues, obviously they are referring to the shape of a snake's tongue, and it is a work of around 40 minutes with 7 songs, and it is an album that will be the delight of fans of Gorgoroth in their great albums Ad Majorem and Twilight. And also the band Godseed and Of Hell, a project between Shagrat and King of Hell. And even though the Encyclopedia Metallum tags them as depressive black metal, it is true that in the first LP they had that sound, but now they have totally changed to a much richer and more diverse sound with several black metal influences. You can listen their works on Spotify, Bandcamp, as well as on YouTube, and you can follow them on their official YouTube account as well as on Facebook and Instagram. And now we go to Canada with the band Vinterstorn, which means a winter tower, and the album Left Forever in Time, which has 7 songs of around 30 minutes, and they have a particular sound that you can classify it as atmospheric black metal, but not in the way of Woods of Desolation and so on, but rather leaning towards the atmospheric raw black metal vibe of Sastur and Leviathan. There are also certain passages of rhythms between pure Norwegian black metal and trashy sounds like Carpathian Forest. This is the first full length after a couple of singles and EPs, and you can listen to their work on Bandcamp as well as on Spotify and also on YouTube. And you can follow them on Twitter or as well as in Instagram. And now we go to the USA with the band The Gravewürm and the album Pestilent Revenant. This Gravewürm refers to the worms of the graves, or also to the worm in the sense of large or giant serpents or snakes that have the shape of a worm. It is also related to the wyrms, which are mythological snakes or wingless reptiles, and these of pestilential revenant refers to be reborn, but in a pestilent way. This band has been releasing demos since 1992 and is currently releasing their work number 26 as a long play. And this album particularly sounds a lot like the band Varathron from Greece and has a very similar sound, in the instruments, just like the Norwegian black metal of the 90s. Highly recommended. You can listen to their work on Bandcamp as well as on Spotify, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram. And now we are going to Portugal with the band Orthodoxyn, a name taken obviously from the song of Archon in Faustus, and they have that style between black and death with some dissonance and reminiscent sounds of the best albums of Despel Omega from the C Monumentum LP until the Furnaces, and also bands like Blood Aus Nord, Portal and Mitochondrion. The name of the album refers to an orthodox cult to religion at a cosmic and spiritual level, and being the first full length of this band, they give a pleasant surprise with their high level of musical composition. You can hear their work on Bandcamp, and at the moment they have no social networks. And now we go back to Australia with the band Aphantasia, that is understood as the inability to imagine or have mental images, and is understood also as without imagination, and his album Blood Letter. It has 8 songs of about 1 hour that brings us a mix between the slow, nostalgic, melancholic rhythms of Nocturnal Depression and also the ferocity, desperation and agony of Silencer, not only in the melody but also in his voice. It also has slow and melancholic acoustic passages and high-speed and agonizing tension throughout the album. This is the 7th full length of the band, besides several singles and EPs, and you can listen to their work on Bandcamp as well as on Spotify and also on YouTube. Follow them on Facebook. And now we go to France with the band Putain de Tristesse, which means damned sadness, and the LP of the same name with 6 songs of around 40 minutes. This is a mix between the Ukrainian band Drukt and Woods of Desolation, in the sense that it is not technically depressive black metal, as the label indicates in the Encyclopedia Metallum, but rather like an atmospheric melodic black metal leaning towards the depressive side. This album is amazing, and you can listen to it on their Bandcamp page, and you can also follow them on Facebook. And now we go back to Ukraine with the band Gruddyam Donyzu, and the first LP is Suffering May Last Forever. It is a totally unknown name and incomprehensible, and this band has no social networks yet. You can listen to their first work in the Bandcamp site and also in the Ukrainian black metal channel on YouTube. More than depressive black metal, this is a kind of atmospheric black metal leaning towards black doom with certain parts of depressive, but with touches of atmospheric and acoustic guitars. You can also find passages with clean and ambient vocals. It has a very clean sound, more than a heavy, dirty and slow black doom. It is more of an atmospheric black metal leaning towards depression, slowness and melancholy. And now we go back to the USA with the band Nocturnal Avernus, which means nocturnal hell or the entrance to hell or a nocturnal place, and the album Coven. It is a work of around 40 minutes with 12 songs, and they give us a very good melodic symphonic black metal, but not in the vein of Dimmu Borgir, but more similar to the band Bal Sagot from the UK. Few bands have that type of musical line in the symphonic black metal subgenre, and at some times they sound a little similar to the albums of Cradle of Filth in the decade of 2000. They are more similar to Bal Sagot in the way that they have very fast songs with progressive guitars, very fast keyboards, and a very predominant symphonic vibe. This is the 6th album that they released, and you can listen to it on Bandcamp on Spotify and also on YouTube. You can follow them on Facebook and also Instagram.